So good morning or good night, depending on where you are. And welcome to another video of Is It That Bad? Where we take a look at an album that maybe when it came out, it was misunderstood or there was some controversy about it. So we are here to discuss it. So joining me again for this series is the series regulars. We have Tom the Green Man and JC Rock and Metal Reviews. And I brought back the by popular demand, people are like, we don't like it when it changes to one person. We want to see everyone at the same time. So here you go. The three of us at the same time. Shut the fuck up now. So, yeah, we're here to talk about an album by the legendary band Black Sabbath. So, first of all, how are you today, my guest?
Yeah, doing good, thanks.
Good, good. It's a Sunday morning here. And yeah, this is the album that we're going to talk about. Black Sabbath-Dehumanizer. And I can say without a doubt that this album cover is terrible. not to talk about the music. We're not talking about the music, but this album cover is crappy as hell. I don't even like the way that they put the logo. I don't. It looks very 80s. Like it looks like Moonra from Thundercats. It's like sapping a Terminator. So if there's anyone in the yeah, it's funny looking. So if anyone here is a fan of 80s, they'll catch our references. If not, Google them. But yeah, the album cover is pretty weak. So this is the series, Is It That Bad? So we're going to talk about first impressions listening to this album. Then we're going to pick tracks that are the weakest. And then we're going on a final round where we actually vote and give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and we say, okay, it's not that bad, or yeah, it's that bad. So let's start today. I'm thinking for this, let's start with JC. What were your first impressions of this album?
Okay, this one came out in 1992, and for some reason I don't remember coming out. I guess by that time I was probably more interested in listening to like grunge music. I listened to like a lot of Metallica and Pantera, but like I don't really remember this one coming out. I remember the ones. Actually, I remember Black Sabbath releasing like an album a few years back, which was the Headless Cross, and then they released another one called Tear, which I don't remember either. But I listened to this like later on, maybe the first time I listened to it maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And well, to be honest with you, I mean, we'll talk more about this later, but I mean, it's not bad. But the thing with Ronnie James Dio is that he sets the bar very high when it comes to his albums with Black Sabbath, because he put out Heaven and Hell. That's like one of the classics, like
Classic
one of
album.
the albums that just like set heavy metal in general, and then follow that up with Mob Rules, and another great album. But then Ronnie James Dio left Black Sabbath. He was invited. Then Black Sabbath, they kind of like after that, they would have all these different vocalists. They had Ian Gillan, they had Tony Martin, they had Glenn Hughes on one album. So they kept like rotating these vocalists, and then they brought Ronnie James Dio back for one album. But I think like people just, I guess, like you said with the cover. First of all, I think you look at the cover and it's like that kind of like turns you away from it, and then you listen to the music, which is it's not horrible, but it doesn't live up to the standards as those other Dio albums that were from the '80s. So. That's my opinion of it. I'll talk more in detail as we get to the second sections, but that's what I have to say for now. Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, to be honest, for me, leading up to this video, this was more like, felt like the first time I was listening to this, because I was sure I'd listened to it before when I was going back, visiting Dio Black Sabbath albums, and like Heaven and Hell and stuff. And I remember going through a bit of a Dio phase, but I had trouble remembering this album actually when I was listening to it. So I think this may have actually been the first time, probably certainly listening to it front to back. It's got a mixture of I'd say some straight up rockers on this album with doomier, slower songs. So you've got a bit of a range of tempos going on in the album. As you both pointed out, I don't think the album cover is very much of its time, really. It's kind of got a comic book cover type feel to it. And I suppose they were maybe trying to align it with some of the themes on the album, which are kind of technological related themes and religion and all that sort of thing, and thinking about life after death, I think, in one of the tracks. So I can see how they were trying to maybe tie in the themes a bit. I think the reason, because I remember, Hector, you saying that it was one that was less popular and everything, and that led to us choosing it for the series and everything. I think it might be a bit controversial because of the lineup changes. I don't know that for sure, but reading what I've read about this, it seems like that's a possibility, because you had quite a few members going out. I mean, Cozy Powell was actually in an accident, wasn't he? So
yeah, he had a horse riding accident.
Horse riding accident, yeah. So you had Vinny coming in, and then you had Geezer Butler coming back, and obviously Dio replacing Tony Martin. And I wondered whether that might have caused a bit of a upheaval, a bit of a rupture in Black Sabbath, even though you've obviously still got Tony Iommi in the mix, and Jeff Nichols and stuff. But yeah, it just felt like maybe that's why, because it was just such a bit of a shift in the band to a different lineup, and trying to hark back to the Dio era of the early 80s. Yeah, I think I sort of, and with JC, I think, it's sort of my first impressions of it are that it's it's kind of decent, but yeah, I'll try not to give too much of a verdict on it, not to spoil the final round, but it's one of those albums where it's kind of hard not to give away a verdict too soon. But yeah, I quite liked it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when this happened, then I think there was lawsuits in the band, and then I think Ozzy returned, and there was like a much drama with Dio. But yeah, so actually, when you think about it, I actually thought that Black Sabbath had more albums with Dio, but they only have 3 albums with him, if you don't count 2009's Heaven and Hell, The Devil You Know. And that's a Black Sabbath album that they had to change it for legal reasons at the time, and that's a great album. If you haven't heard that one, Heaven and Hell, The Devil You Know, very great album. So actually, this album, I never listened to it until I said let's review it. I had heard TV Crimes because in the beginning of the 2000s, Black Sabbath put like a CD called Black Sabbath The Dio Years, and I actually bought that. And TV Crimes, I think, was the only song from that album, Dehumanizer, that was actually on that compilation, if I'm not mistaken. So it's the only one. When I listened to the album and I saw, I'm like, yeah, I've heard that song, TV Crimes. I remember listening to that song. And yeah, listening to the album, I'm not going to give my verdict quite soon because, there's more stuff in the video. But yeah, there's some decent stuff, and then there's some stuff that are okay. But like the thing is with Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules are such classics that it's like really hard to follow up that. And there was a 10-year gap from Mob Rules. Like they hadn't been with Dio in 10 years. And I was reading that this album was very expensive to produce. They also like wrote the songs like in 2 weeks. So it could have been a little bit rushed as well. And also when you think about it, it came out in 1992. That year you had Metallica blowed up with the Black Album, you had Megadeth, you had Guns N' Roses. So I think people were like, Black Sabbath were like kind of forgotten at the time, like because there were so many other bands doing better stuff, in my opinion. But yeah, I listened to it for the first time completely, and yeah, I have some thoughts on it that we will keep discussing on the video. So second round, JC, what do you think are the weakest tracks in this album and why?
Okay, I picked 3 that kind of like come right after the other. Time Machine, which is not that bad. I think it's it kind of has a classic sound, but it's just one of the songs that just I like the other ones better. That's the only reason I picked that. And then Sins of the Father. This one I felt it was more like of that technical ecstasy or never say die kind of sound. They were going for that. So that one I felt was a little weaker, not horrible, but it was one of the weaker ones. And then Too Late, that's one of the ballads similar to something like Children of the Sea. It's just not as memorable as some of the other classics, like I say, Children of the Sea or the other like Dio songs. But it wasn't too bad. So those are my three. I'll leave it at that for now. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I think we might have some different picks. It's interesting. I think this is one of those albums that may come down to taste a bit. I wasn't really very keen on After All the Dead. It just for me, I don't know. It's a doomier track on the album, but it just dragged a bit. I didn't find enough in it that was the sort of doom that I like, I suppose. I could almost felt that track might have been better with somebody like, this is going to maybe be controversial, but I was picturing Ozzy singing more for that sort of a track than Dio. But there you go. That's just my take on that track. I didn't really like Too Late very much. Just pretty good song in the sense the way I think that it had been written. But it was just long for me, and I just, again, it feels like I'm just picking out slow tempo tracks here. But for me, those were the tracks on the album I just enjoyed less. So there's another slow tempo track that I didn't really dig very much, and it was 7 minutes, so it didn't hold up well enough for me for the 7 minutes. And then lastly, I think JC mentioned this one, Sins of the Father. I thought it was quite decent actually, but it was just one that I forgot about very quickly afterwards.
Yeah,
so that's last three.
Nice. So my three songs, I pick up a few different. I didn't like Letters from Earth. I just thought it was corny. It's like, oh, Letters from Earth, and I don't know, like I'm sorry, Dio was a great vocalist, but there was some cheesiness sometimes to him. Like,
yeah,
I sorry to say, because people are like, how dare you say something? But let's be honest here. So he was a great singer, but sometimes he wrote cheesy as fuck lyrics. And Letters from Earth.
Even look at the old videos, the music videos. He's like
Rainbow in the Dark.
Yeah.
So yeah, that song for me was kind of cheesy. Then my second pick is Time Machine, which was actually, I read it was used for the Wayne's World movie. And I don't remember that on the Wayne's World movie. Maybe it's because, you have Bohemian Rhapsody and you had so many other good songs that was actually on that movie. But I think I'm like, this is news to me that movie was in there. Like when I saw Time Machine, maybe I thought, they could have used it for Hot Tub Time Machine. Yeah, but yeah, that one for me was corny. Musically, it was okay, but I didn't enjoy it as well. And I agree with Too Late. Like Tom, it's like very long and kind of boring. Like too long for its own good. So yeah, those are the three tracks that I thought were the weakest in the album. So now, yeah, let's give our final conclusions of what we think of the album and if we're gonna give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So let's start with JC.
Okay, I mean, I guess pretty much everybody's expecting this, but it's a thumbs up for me. It's a good album. There's a lot of, even though there were a few weaker songs, but there's still a lot of good stuff here. Computer God, I really like that one. Just great vocals. TV Crime, that's just about like those televangelists. That was something that was very popular back in those days. But that's a really great song, and probably like the best song is really great deep cut called I towards the end. It's just a really great song and one of like their best, one of the best Dio songs that people don't talk about a lot. So I think it's very good. If to rank it with the technically there are three Dio albums, but let's say four, including the Heaven and Hell, the Devil You Know. This would be like the worst out of those, but still, as far as like the Black Sabbath ranking, and I just did a tier list on my channel recently. Like this is pretty high up. I think it's not very high up. I mean, it's pretty much in the middle. I mean, I ranked a lot of Black Sabbath albums a lot lower than this. I think it's pretty good. So I give it a thumbs up. That's my verdict. Yeah.
Good. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I thought it's kind of pretty decent. It's very familiar sounding, some of it. Like I feel like, it's the sort of thing I've heard before. It sort of has that, it's kind of uncomplicated in a way, which, sometimes you need just stuff which is kind of more straightforward, rocking, old school. This was a 1992 album, I guess, as well. So I've got to keep that in mind. But yeah, for me, I think it's a thumbs up still. This I think if I did a Black Sabbath ranking, it would probably be quite low down. I don't think it would be bottom, but it'd be quite low down. I think I actually really like the Tony Martin era quite a bit, particularly the album Headless Cross. I think it is. That's really good. That's probably one of my sort of from this era, like late 80s, early 90s. I really liked. So you kind of had a bit of revolving doors with the singers, but I really liked that sort of Tony Martin era quite a bit. Certainly that album. And this one for me, actually, after those albums with Tony Martin, was actually a little bit of a come down, but I still think it's decent. It's way better than a lot of the albums we've talked about in previous episodes.
For sure.
This is considerably better than the likes of Kid Rock and Nickelback. And I know I saved the Astonishing, but I would still probably listen to this over the Astonishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, thumbs up.
Okay, so I think that leaves me, and I gotta say, I don't get what much controversy this album had. It has a few weaker tracks, but even though they're not that great, they're not awful. They're not something that I would say like, oh my God, this is terrible. So yeah, I give it a thumbs up too. This is the first time in a video that we all giving a thumbs up to a record, I think. Oh, except that Iron Maiden one.
11, yeah.
Yeah, with the Iron Maiden too. But I think I enjoyed this one better than that Iron Maiden album. Because the other Iron Maiden album did have a few stinkers. But this one, even Time Machine and the songs that are not as good, they're still not
They're
bad.
Not stinkers, yeah.
Then they have Computer God, TV Crimes, which are awesome songs. And obviously, Ronnie James Dio is a great vocalist. But if I had to rank it out of the 4 albums that they have, including Heaven and Hell, I would say this is the weakest of the Ronnie James Dio albums with Black Sabbath, but still a very good album, So you have it here. We are certifying Black Sabbath-Dehumanizer as it's not bad, it's good. So if you heard this album, we want you in the comments to let us know what are your favorite tracks. What are your thoughts on this album, and what are the tracks that you thought are the weakest? Because that would be interesting. So, Tom, next pick will be your pick. So, do you have an album in mind that you would like to discuss for the Is It That Bad series?
Yeah, I had been thinking maybe Battles by In Flames.
So next video, we're going to tackle Battles by In Flames. So people, if you like the videos that we're putting out, do not forget to subscribe. Do not forget to give us a like. You can follow JC Rock and Metal Reviews. He's now nearing the 2,000 mark. Like, you go, JC. Like, and he promised in his channel that when he gets to 2,000, he will do a video shirtless. It's a joke for him. Like, it's a joke. Yeah, JC's like, what? No.
Oh my God, yeah.
And also, please subscribe to Tom the Green Man's channel. He does album reviews too, but he does a lot of things. He talks books, he talks fantasy books, and he talks about series as well. And he's got a great series, the Shoegaze Files, and I'm actually doing a video with him about slow dive songs with him soon. So yeah. And also, if you haven't subscribed to me, please do. Getting up there in the 624 or 625, I don't know. So let's get to 700 and try to get to 1,000 sometime this year. So Until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude Couch, and we'll see you next time for another Is It That Bad album. Thank you, and good night.